We're back. Knox County Mayor Tim Burchett kind enough to join us this morning. Susan Richardson-Williams.
Well, let's talk about the 10-year plan, and you weighed in on that about the alcohol issue. Tell me what your objection is.
Well, first of all, there's been a little bit of, I think, a misrepresentation of Knox County's role. We give over $6 million. I mean, the taxpayers choose to do that. $6 million to indigent care through health care that we're not required to do. I think 5.5 is for health care, and another million plus is for some other parts of indigent care. And what we're talking about is $50,000. I just said, if they're going to allow drinking in these facilities, then Knox County's not going to be a part of it. And there was a comment made that, well, if they're not going to, it's like they're going to take their toys and go home. That's a total mischaracterization of my position and everybody else's that's involved in it. I think the folks that are doing it mean well. I think they're doing a good thing. But I also believe that if you allow alcohol in one of these facilities, where their statistics, it was 50%, now it's maybe 30% are there because of alcohol or a chemical dependency. I have friends that are in 12-step. I have friends that are in homeless missions in this very county, and I've talked to them, and they'll tell you, if you allow me to drink in that room, I will. But if you won't, I'm going to get out. Now, is your goal to get these people straightened out, or is your goal just to give them a clean place to live? If your goal, and what's your measure of success? And two, you got to look at next year. Is the county going to be required or asked to pay for counseling that's already being provided by several other services? And so I'm not really sure. I know there was talk early on that all these groups got together, but as I've talked to some of these groups, they weren't at the table, and they're the ones that are in the trenches, that have historically been in the trenches. I'm talking about under the bridge, talking to these homeless veterans, these others, and they deliver. They get the people straightened out. They get their lives turned around. And so I'm not really sure that maybe all those people were at the table.
With the 10-year plan, and just a real pointed question about it, is the 10-year plan with its core of decentralization, that is spreading out the services through Knox County, dead today, at least from your perspective? Is it dead?
I don't think it's dead. I think the housing component is what's got them in trouble. I think that they went about it the wrong way. I don't think people in Knox County like to be told. I think they like to be given options and explain the situation, because they're not idiots and they understand what's going on. I think that there's been a tone, maybe there might have been some the appearance of some arrogance that some people have experienced. And frankly, I don't appreciate talking to people who actually, in my opinion, do the Lord's work, that do the real work, have been in a situation where they feel they might be a little intimidated by some of these folks. And that's not going to cut it anymore, Don. And we're going to straighten it out. And if they don't want to, if they're going to allow alcohol in these places, Knox County's out.
I think one of the points that was made throughout this discussion is that the substance abuse problem, as far as it relates to alcohol, may be lower among the population. At least from Dr. Noe's study, that respected UT researcher says it's more like 18% of that population may have a real problem with alcohol. And it seems to me the argument on the other side has been, well, if you have somebody who doesn't have that pretense, and doesn't have that substance abuse issue,
right,
to deny them a glass of wine when they get home after work, or beer or something, is sort of dictating their life.
You're talking about the chronically homeless. And second of all, I'm not saying they can't drink off premises. That's their business. But the programs that work in this community have a zero tolerance. And I have a good friend of mine who is an alcoholic, or is. And he told me, he said, I got to the point where I lived under a bridge, and that's what hit me. And that's where I said, I'm going to turn my life around. And some people have to get to that point, and I'm not sure.
What about the folks that aren't alcoholics? That's where John's going. They're not all alcoholics.
But is our goal, well, then what?
There are reasons for chronic homelessness.
I agree. But if you go down to these groups and you look around, and I'm going to tell you that there's a large
Does there need to be a component with no drinking? I think we agree on that. But the question is this is tiered or stepped issues, and there will be families at the end of public housing that have never demonstrated an issue with alcohol or drugs, and now we're going to start mandating their morals and their life with otherwise lawful behavior. And I guess that's the concern, Tim.
Well, I can see that concern, but how do you commingle these people?
Well,
I mean,
I don't know
when a
that
guy
they're planning to.
when a guy tells me that I was an alcoholic, if somebody spills a beer on him, he's back off the wagon. I mean, literally. And I just don't see how you're going to segregate that bunch. And what we're really dealing with is the federal government saying that this is a disability, and that's fine. If they want to do the 10-year homeless plan, they can go ahead and do it, but they're going to do it without Knox County's help if they're going to allow alcohol in these facilities.
What if the commission decides they would like to buy into the 10-year plan? Is that, I mean, is that something you would?
Yeah, but I think that they need to be at the table, and I think these statistics that we get we need to bring everybody to the table, and there should not be a threat of intimidation by some of these other groups.
I want to stop on that because I know these folks pretty well, and John Lawler and some of these folks. Who has been intimidating who specifically,
Well,
if you know?
as I said, Don, I talk to folks, and as you know, when you talk to folks, if you disclose who you've talked to, then they stop talking
to
to you.
innuendo right now.
Well, and I'm telling you, if they told me it's the truth, and that, that's what I sort of feel like I'm paid to do, is to find out what the truth is.
So,
and I think the 10-year plan, I think it has a hope of some success, but until they bring everybody really to the table and stop with all the nonsense, I don't think you're going to see it.
The characterizations worry me. I agree, Mayor, that there's been a communications difficulty with the 10-year plan, but
I think there's been a real arrogance with the plan, to be honest with you, Don, because when they sit in my office and tell me, I say, all right, you're going to do Menvilla, you're going to do Flanagan, and then you're going to stop right then until we get some statistics. And they say, absolutely, unless we get another deal working. And it's a moving target. They're going to have to shoot straight with me, and I'll shoot straight with them. But and all we're talking about is $50,000. If $50,000 stops the 10-year plan, then it's probably not a good plan.
I agree.
Either.
Reasonable minds can disagree as to
Sure.
policy. What I'm concerned is, I'm hearing from you, I'm hearing some very strong accusations lobbed that I'm just wondering if they are no more than bad feelings and rumor and innuendo versus communications and issues that need to be worked out in the public and better than they have been. And all I guess I'm suggesting to you is keep that open mind, because I think everybody is really trying
I think
to do
you'll
the right
find
thing.
that the Burchett family has been very generous to these organizations through the years, and I think I have a very decent idea of how these things need to go and how some of them don't need to go.
You and I have generally agreed on mental health issues.
You're absolutely right, and that's what it is. It is a mental health issue, and we need to address it from that point. I appreciate you saying that.
No. We only have about 30 seconds left, and I wanted you to be able to leave our viewers with a couple of goals that you have for the next few months.
Well, I just hope that the people in Knox County have a sense of pride and back towards Knox County government. I think the vast majority of the folks there that work there are doing the right thing and continue to do the right thing, and they want to do the right thing, and they don't like all the bad news. But you're talking about a very small amount, and I think we've taken care of some of those situations, and I think you're going to see a more open, honest, and transparent government in the next 3+ years. And I just like it's the week of Veterans Day, the week of, and I just want to thank all our veterans.
Mayor Burchett, we appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And we'll be back with our talk around right after this.